Welcome to CanHammer, everybody, your source for 40K and AOS from the Great White North. Today's work in progress video, Nagash. Okay, so I'm trying to reproduce this. If you see these ghosts here, the faces are actually darker, and the eyes and mouth and nose are white hot. See that? The raised areas of the ghosts are actually darker than the recesses. You see that? Which is pretty cool. It gives them this kind of negative look. Makes them look white hot. I'm going to try and recreate that. Right now I've got your typical sort of ghosts that are hotter. Sorry, just trying to focus it in for you. That are hotter, or that will be hotter on the raised edges. I'm gonna try and reverse that somehow. I don't know how he got the white inside the eyes, because the eyes are just empty holes, see? I'm not sure how he did that, but maybe just by lining it. But yeah, we're gonna try that out here with some. We're gonna try it out with some on one of these ghosts with some Drakenhof Nightshade, which is a super dark blue shade. Sorry, I'm not sure why I can't focus today. Yeah, there we go. So this is a deep blue shade. It's pretty dark, and we're gonna try it out maybe on one of these ghosts here. Maybe this guy at the bottom here. Okay, so we got the faces darkened down with a couple of layers of Drakenhof Nightshade, and I also shaded some of the body and the little daggers as well. And we'll see how that goes. Also put a little bit of nightshade into other parts of the, very conservative with it, just in the deepest recesses of the sort of swirly bits at the bottom. So we'll let that dry off. Okay, here's progress on Nagash. So here's how my ghost faces turned out. Dark with the white inside. There he goes, that one. That one looks okay, not the best, but okay. That one looks a bit smiley face. That one probably looks the best, this one in here. The light's not that great, but there we go. That one probably looks the best. And then dry brush of Praxeti White, which is the dry pigment white dry brush, kind of a bit off-white. Just so keeping in mind Ryan's advice about hitting highlights as if the light was like this. So, because that's how the rest of the model is painted. You know, there's not a lot of highlights and even some dark lights here at from the back view. So I carefully, painstakingly, just very lightly dry brush the highest ridges that shine from the front. So maybe the best example is like here. You can see here, this piece here. So this is just dry brushed just to catch that edge there and to catch that edge there. But you'll see on the back here, there's almost no dry brushing on the back edge of these, strands. Not even the back of the ghosts here. Sorry, it doesn't focus well when there's background. Yeah, so the back of these strands and the back of the ghosts, almost none. And then I focused it more on the front of these strands here. And there's lots of little ridges and stuff to catch. So, and the little sharp points just on the top here, leading down to that book, and then going down to the bottom. Anyway, I don't know if it's really that easy to see. It's very visible in person, but yeah, so now I'm going to take a very, very conservative dry brush of White Scar on just the highest edges, just to give it that little bit extra pop. And then I think that this kind of darker schemed ghosts for Nagash is done. And this is probably the same scheme I'm going to end up using for all the Grimghasts and other Night Haunts in my list. So that's probably what I'm going to do. So, and with the white as well, I'm going to dry brush up into some of these holes here at the bottom edge, not the top edge of the holes. And then what I'm going to do is dry brush this blue pigment into these higher holes here eventually, and also edge highlight the cape, but we'll get onto that. So let's just finish on these ghosts for now. All right, so what I did was I just created hot spots with the white. So there's a hot spot there. You know, this little tip here is a hot spot. I want to create that contrast. So, you know, here we picked out a hot spot, like there's a hot spot right there. Hot spots on the tips of the ghosts. Just created, you know, here's a good example on this one. So there's a hot spot on the tip there, and then a hot spot right there. Yeah, anyway, it looks cool in person. I don't know how visible it is on the camera. There's a hot spot at the tip of that. And then what I did was I lightly dry brushed some edges of his cloak here, and then inside these holes here, just the bottom edge of the blue parts of the holes, just to give a bit of definition to these holes in the cloak and these folds of cloth that kind of fold down from these holes. Pretty cool. Gives it a little bit of definition. Kind of all the way around here. This part of the cloak is a little bit darker, so it didn't really go in there, but just around here, for example, this part of the cloak here, just a little bit of whiteness just in there. Define those folds a little bit. So I think I'm fairly happy with the ghosts as they stand now. It's a nice contrast. There's some black parts, there's some blue and lighter blue, a little bit lighter white, and then some hot white spots. I think once we varnish this up at the end, it's going to look pretty nice. And when the base is done and everything. So what we're going to do now, I think I'm going to leave the ghost faces as they are right now. I can't think of what to do to make it look any better, except maybe like a glaze or something. Well, maybe we'll come back to it. So there's another hot spot right there, just on this ridge here, just on the ridge of this thing running up down there. So what we're going to do now is put a little bit of the electric blue on the inside of these black holes in the cape. Be very subtle about it. We'll try to be anyway. Just to highlight the bottom edge of these holes in the cape that are black. And then yeah, that'll be it basically. So then we'll take some gray probably and just edge highlight the cloak here. Here we go. That's cool. Gives these holes a little bit of definition, a bit of glow, and if you kind of take a step back, like, it looks pretty good. Picked out every little hole there. Pretty good. Okay, what I'm gonna do now is edge the front of the cloak here with some gray, and very carefully. And then I am basically done the cloak. Yeah. I decided not to do much to the inside of the cloak because it's kind of hidden from view, as well as being in the shadow of Nagash, and his body will be in there, so not a big deal. Yeah, so then we'll be almost done, and then we'll start picking out all these books. Alright, some progress here on Nagash. So, I've been just picking out the books, just base coating them. Most of them are brown, kind of vellum. One of them is kind of red colored. And then 2 of them up front here are fleshy. Where are the fleshy guys? Here are the fleshy guys. Here are the fleshy guys. So got some stitching, skin stitching and stuff there. So I just picked those out and washed them, so they're just chilling out over here. Then I started work on the body here. So this robe is going to be similar to, you know, coming from the Ethereum. So it's going to be blue at the bottom going up to black. So I just pre-shaded that with some white airbrush there. Front and back on that piece, and only the front of that one because that one's kind of shadowed. So, and so when that's dry, we'll put on some of the old electric blue, and that'll be a start to Nagash's body. And then the rest I think is going to be done by hand. The armor is going to be black. You know, as the black plates of Morricane, so the armor should be black. And so we're just going to basically go over it again with a black paint, and then edge highlight it all. It should take some time. Do his skin and the big skull on his shoulder here, and we'll be well on our way. All right, so I sprayed the electric blue on, and that went pretty well. And then I sprayed some of this light blue on. I didn't have the teal that Ryan used, and maybe it was a little too much, but it looks okay. Looks okay. So I had to touch up a bit of black on the here. I was masking it with the cardboard, but the cardboard slipped. So I touched up a bit of black on the armor there. But so these little sleeves look okay. I'm fairly happy with that. Gonna just pick out the edges with the gray and pick out the little circles with the blue like I did before. And then we could get started on the rest of the armor there. Alright, in progress for Nagash. Books are almost done. I've just been picking out these chains and all the other book details, just waiting for a layer of Nuln Oil to dry on these chains here. And hot tip, so when you paint these chains, when you shade them, be a bit liberal and let the Nuln Oil overrun just onto the top and bottom edges of the chains, because then that shadows the chains on the background and then gives the chains a little bit of definition and makes them stand out a little bit from the book. So you see this one particularly because the background, the book itself is pretty pale. If you let the Nuln Oil run a little bit into the top and bottom edges around the chain, it really makes the chain pop out on top of the book as opposed to just kind of blending into the background. So this is what I tried to do with the Agrax shading and with the Nuln Oil shading on these chains. And some of them had ropes, and I did the same with the ropes. Pretty liberal on the Nuln Oil, so the ropes kind of stand out a little bit. Okay, so that's the bottom. The top here, I've just finished off these little cloak bits by dry brushing just a little bit of Ulthuan Gray on the blue, so it wasn't so flat. I picked out these little dots with the electric blue again with the brush, and I edge highlighted here with some Dark Reaper and some Dawnstone, just like the cloak at the bottom. Very, very light, just to pick up some of these cloak surfaces like that. Okay, now next will be the armor here. So the armor, I'm going to be, it's going to be black, obviously. I'm going to pick out these plate edges with some Dark Reaper and then some Dawnstone, like I have been doing with all the other black parts. But trying to be, it's going to need to be so precise. So I'm not looking forward to that. It's going to take a while. And then you see where the light comes off. So the light comes off the rivet line right here on the side. Same with this rivet line there. And then there's a distinct ridge down the middle of the plate right there. You see it's light on the left, dark on the left. And there's definitely a ridge down the middle. So that's where I'm going to put my extra bright highlight, just on the edges of the plates down the middle. Now if I was really cool, I could do like non-metallic metal or something, but I'm not that cool. And same with the shoulder plates here. You can we're going to find a ridge where we can put the highlight. If I was really, really cool and brave, I would kind of airbrush a specular highlight on top of these before picking out the edge highlighting. But I don't know if I'm not brave. I don't know. And the same with the legs. Obviously, there's ridges down these sharp sharp edges there. It's pretty obvious on the legs where the highlights would be, right down the middle. But then there's a little highlight there on top of the ankle and on the calf muscle there. There you can pick out maybe on the side of the thigh. You know what the airbrushing has helped is to help me visualize these things, think about these things before I start highlighting, where these kind of specular highlights fall. So I don't know, maybe I'll be brave. I don't know, worst comes worst, I just spray over it again. We'll see. Alright, so what I've done is I actually dry brushed some of the somber gray airbrush paint. Very, 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 very little bits, and built it up very slowly. Just on the shoulder pad there, and down the two specular lines there on the back, the side and the middle lines on the front here, the top of the thigh, the top of the calf there, kind of where I was thinking these highlights would be on the arm there. And dry brush that very lightly, going for a very subtle highlight there. And then I glazed it with black and glazed medium mix, 4:1. 4:1 glazed medium to 1 black. And glazed it over all the black armor to kind of blend in that little bit of highlighting already. So that gives it a kind of more general sort of 3 feet away highlight, which I think looks pretty good. And then now I'm going to pick out the plate details. You know, a bit of experimentation. I didn't feel brave enough to do that with the airbrush. Maybe I will next time. I just didn't feel brave enough to do that with the airbrush, so I kind of tried to do it without an airbrush. It worked okay, it wasn't the best, but I think it'll turn out okay once all the other highlights and stuff is painted. Alright, just edge highlighting the black plates of Morcan now. Just picking out this sharp point there, the middle height, and this side with the slightly wider Dark Reaper highlight. You can see here on the shoulder plates there, just sticking towards the middle there. Same with on the back. Slightly fatter highlights on those edges there. And you can see it on the legs here. Just picking out Dark Reaper there. And then I'm going to use the Dawnstone as my next layer. And then maybe a super fine specular highlight right at those sharp tips. And then that will be the armor done. So I'm going to keep going with that. Most of this leg is hidden by the robes. The back of both legs is completely hidden by the robes, so I didn't bother with that. This leg kind of sticks out a little bit, so spend some time on that leg. But this leg, you can see there, that's the area where it actually glues onto the rope, so it's almost completely hidden most of the way down, so didn't spend any time on that. So there we go. So we'll keep moving forward. Alright, here we go. Maybe it looks a bit better on video than it does in real life and in close-up pictures, but you can see there I've just picked out the white at the Ulthuan gray, really, at the super tips. So basically Dark Reaper for the big highlight. The thinner edge highlight was with Dawnstone, and then the tips just picked out with Ulthuan gray. You can see it here also on the leg here. Same pattern of colors, just on the real tip of these leg plates. And then on the shoulder here. And the arms. And here on the back shoulder and the back plates. So I think that is the armor done, like the plates done. Obviously I got to do all the trim, which is the next part. But that's the black plates done. I think it's going to look pretty good once it's all varnished up and everything. So pretty happy with that. It was some painstaking work, so I think I'm going to take a bit of a break for tonight, but we'll come back to this with the bone trim and his skin and all the other little details. Actually, not too many details, and we'll be well on our way for Nagash. All right, painstaking work, but I've picked out all the bone trim. It's all the way around the armor. All these skulls, knee pads, these little winglets here at the top of the feet, the around the elbow pads, arm guards going up to the hands, on the back here, all this. And I've just started to shade the bone. I'm doing it very carefully so I can get the shade just where I want it here for definition. Also did skin. Skin is in Rakarth flesh. Skin, and this skull is also in Rakarth flesh, whereas that's in bone. So there we go. So we're going to continue shading the rest of this bony stuff. Alright, here's first stage highlights. So just using Ushabti bone. Here's the little crotch string. Here's the knee pad. So just highlighting the bone up and the edges of the knee pad there with Ushabti, leaving a lot of nice shadow there. Here's the little side bone bits. Not much to do on these thin areas surrounding the armor piece, but these shoulder pads there, you see there. And this skull. So this skull is a slightly different color bone. It's darker Rakarth flesh base as opposed to Xandri. So it's got a little different look to it just to make it stand out a little bit. Nice even shading there. And picked out there also with Ushabti, kind of unifies it with the rest of the shoulder pad but makes it stand out. So you're just picking up all the little bone bits here. Here's the other shoulder pad here. A little arm guard. Boom. Okay, good. So now the next stage will be to do some white scar highlights just on the very edges, just to really kick it out. And then gotta pick out the bands on these little, whatever they are, grenades or canisters or whatever. Then we gotta finish his flesh, and then actually Nagash body will be done. All right, we are done Nagash's body. There's a lot of little detail we have to finish. I had to put little bits of white highlight on all the bone, edges of the bone. You can just pick it out there. Really kind of pops out the tips of these little bone bits, and so it's pretty good. Then we had to do the skin, and that was Rakarth flesh, then a layer of Agrax, then Rakarth flesh again, then a diluted wash of Celia green shade, and then highlighted with pallid witch flesh. And then there's the purple shade for the stitches, again highlighted with witch flesh. And then we had to do these straps, which is just brown. And so yeah, so spend a lot of time just picking out all these details. Do these little skulls on the belt with the little silver plates across them and the little gold buttons. Not really sure what these are supposed to be. Grenades. Grenade. But pretty cool. And then of course these two of these skull things go on the back of him when he's assembled, so did those two. And yeah, so we're basically done him. While we've been waiting for shades and things, we've been started on the head. Head is fairly straightforward, just painted in the bone there, which is a little bit painstaking, but done. And then these kind of straps that he has on his head. And then what we're going to do now is highlight this bone, and then do the black of the hat. And then we'll do the crown, which is gold, and these little gold details up there. And then the face will be done. And we start to work on the back of the book here. That's just flesh with a bone around it and a sort of bronze clasp. Of course, half of that hidden by the hand where this thing is attached. And then we have to do the pages. So, and then we just have the back thing to do, which is just needs highlighting. And then Alakanesh and Zephyr Nebtar, and he will be done. So good progress on Nagash being made. It's been taking a while. I took a little gap here because of Capital City Bloodbath, but straight back into it. Let's get this guy done. All right, here we go. Nagash got head. There we go. So I just finished off the armor by picking out the rivets. See the little silver rivets there? There's 4 on each leg piece there. There's a bunch on his chest there. Just picked them out with some Stormhold silver on the shoulder pads here. It's very subtle, but it just adds that little bit of bling blingy bling to his armor there. Then I painted the head. The head didn't take very long, just the same formula for the bone on the chin. These straps were 3 layers, so Rhinox hide, then Nuln Oil, then Gorthor Brown, and then Baneblade Brown. And this was just gold with Reichland Flesh Shade, and then Liberator Gold, Orc Armor Gold, and Stormhold Silver, and then some Soulstone Blue for the little gem in the front there. Picked out the little rivets again. Same levels of highlight for the edges of the hat there, just 4 pretty sharp corners there, and then these face plates at the front. After I finished painting the skull, I put a little bit of Nuln Oil just to make the face a little bit more stark in terms of the bright highlights and the dark recesses, just to make the skull stand out a little bit more. So I think it looks pretty cool now. You can see the teeth and stuff. And really recess it in the bottom there, so you just see the bottom of the top teeth. Make his face look more shadowed. And then this is just the normal bone formula here, picked out with the white on the tips and in the middle here, just like a line down the 2 sides, so it kind of shows up nicely. And then just some silver skull details on the bottom there, and there's the top. So there we go. His head is done. Quite happy with his face detail there. Pretty good. And so I think Nagash is looking pretty good. Just gonna finish off this book now, and the weapons and this back detail thing, which is gonna be a little bit painstaking picking out all these bones, but we'll get it done. Alright, here's the staff. Ala Kanesh is done. Little beat gem at the bottom. Just the usual highlight with Ushabti and then white. Bone all the way up. Picked out these wings here. And then the jewel in the head there. And then the bronze top with the silver details. Same on both sides. Pretty sweet. And what I might do, instead of having hollow eyes, I might put green in there, like gob, to make glowing green eyes. I don't know, I haven't decided. Alright, Nagash is done. Here he is in all his glory. Was really fun to paint this guy. I've spent probably close to 5 or 6 weeks on him. Probably the most time I've spent on any single model, and that includes large things like mastodons and stuff. Yeah, I ended up putting a glaze of Gulliman blue on here, which actually made it look really more deathly. Darkened it down but kept the brighter highlights, so actually it looks really good. So I'm glad I did that, and sort of just blended the highlights a little bit better. So I put a Gulliman glaze on there. I'm going to varnish the whole thing eventually once I've done the base. Finished the book finally. Decided to go with this kind of a couple of pentagrams and then just some brown squiggle. And then that ghost there. Not super happy with that ghost, but it looks pretty similar to the ghosts on the rest of his body. So that's what I was kind of going for. Here you go, and this sort of big bony thing sticking out the back. So super happy with that. Really proud of my work on this guy. Yeah, so I haven't stuck them together yet because I got to do the base, and then I'll stick it all together at the end. So he's kind of chilling as he is right now. His staff is here. You know, eventually that's going to go across his back. And then these two little bones kind of stick on the back as well. So right now I'm going to do the base. So the plan with the base is to cover it in skulls. So here I have a GW skull box. You know, that box of skulls you can buy. I don't know how many skulls are in here, 300 skulls. But I'm not sure if it's going to be enough skulls to cover this base, but we're going to give it a go. What I'm going to do first, because it's going to be very difficult to paint them once the skulls are stuck on, I'm going to spray them all skull, wash this, pour some wash in here. I don't know what the best way to do that will be. And then I can dry brush it when it's on the base. But first I'm going to spray them and then wash them. Then I'm just going to plaster this in glue and pour these babies on. And stick some of the bigger ones on and then pour all the little ones on and kind of see how that goes. I'm kind of envisioning like a pentagram or something around his base painted on top of the pile of skulls. But we'll see when I'm done with the skull layer how it looks at that point. So here we go. Okay, that kind of failed because the airbrush just blows them all away and pushes them around. So that's not going to work. If I was really smart, I would have airbrushed them still on the sprue. But of course, I wasn't that smart, and now it's too late. So I have to think of some other way of getting these painted quickly. So yeah. All right, I am one GW box of skulls in, and I've covered about 80% of the base. So I'm gonna need more boxes of skulls. And my plan with the whole Death Army is to cover all their bases with skulls. So I had asked Dan to grab me a whole bunch of skull boxes so I can at least finish this base and get started on the other stuff. But yeah, Nagash's base is coming along. It's going to look pretty cool. Yeah, just need to cover that part with skulls. Alright, after long last, I've managed to find some time to finish my Nagash base. Well, it's not finished, but I got all my skulls on. So I got 2 more boxes of the skulls, and I got one of them, and I learned my lesson. So I actually sprayed them on the sprue and then cut them off, so it didn't cause this ridiculous mess that I made here in this Tupperware, which was stupid. Anyway, and then I had about 30% of the base left to go, which I've just filled in today. So you can see Nagash's base is full of skulls. And I hope that most of them will stick on. Just been using the white glue, trying to glob it on as thick as possible and putting the skulls on. I'm sure 10% of them will fall off either immediately or soon afterwards, and we can try and patch the holes, but it's a little bit tricky getting the skulls in to these areas between all this ghosts. But so now the next step, I'm going to wait for that to dry, and then I'm going to wash them all carefully without pulling them off, and then hopefully try and lightly dry brush them if I can. And then I'm basically done Nagash except for the issue of OSL around the book and maybe around onto the skulls here. So we're gonna have to see how that goes, but I'm almost done Nagash. All right, I managed to shade the skulls very gently with Agrax. Only 2 skulls came off and on the edges, so that's fairly happy with that result. Also doing this kind of converted vampire lord here, so I'm doing his base as well. Her base, that's a converted Gemina, Celestine's Gemina. Anyway, so there we go. We're gonna let that dry, and we're gonna do a very gentle dry brush. All right, we are done the dry brush here, and we only knocked off 1 skull, which is amazing. So, and we painted the edges here with the astrogranite and the black rim, so it matches our direwolves here, which we've just finished up by dry brushing a little bit of Terminatus on the gray there, and they've each got a few skulls because they don't need as many as Nagash. And then our vampire lord over here is also done. So next and final step will be putting some blue OSL on these skulls. Just need to consult for a few experts as to how best to do that, and then probably a little bit of OSL on these ghosts. So from the book and maybe from the ghost onto the body itself. So, or maybe from the sword. I don't know. Let's see. So Nagash almost done. Alright, so in the end I decided not to do any OSL and the base is done. I guess I kind of chickened out. I've spent almost 2.5 months painting this model and didn't want to mess it up at the last step by doing OSL. Some other people also commented that the ghosts themselves don't seem particularly glowy or shiny, so the OSL wouldn't really fit in, and which I guess is kind of true. So we're going to leave them alone and finish them off. So we're going to put them together and show you the final piece. Here he is, Nagash, finished. Boom. So I modeled him with the sword, but I wanted the staff part of his model, so I just strapped it to his back like that. It's a little bit busy, but you know, I just wanted it on there, so there we go. Super awesome model, probably one of the awesomest models I've ever assembled and painted. Took me about 2.5 months. Obviously counting a lot of downtime, like I wasn't furiously hobbying every night for 2.5 months, but overall it's taken me a long time to get him done, and I'm quite happy with that. So you'll be seeing him on a battle report near you very soon. Couple things. First of all, a big thanks to Ryan at 1 Year 1 Army Painting. Ryan Pippi, of course, you've seen him on the channel before. He really helped me do these ghosts at the bottom and teach me a lot about airbrushing, and that has allowed me to carry on and do, you know, chain rasps and all my grim gas over there. So thank you very much to Ryan at 1 Year 1 Army Painting. Check him out on Facebook and online. The other question for the viewers. Ideas on how to transport Nagash to and from games, other than just putting him in his own box, because yeah, that seems to be the only reliable way of transporting him safely. Nobody makes a case or a foam for Nagash. So leave comments below as to what best way to transport Nagash to and from games. But there you go, he's finished finally. This work in progress video has been a long time coming. So thank you very much for watching. Consider subscribing to the channel and supporting us on Patreon. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.